Well, it depends. How much do you like to cut things? What's up, guys? Punzo here, and here we are to do a breakdown and discussion on how good the Soul Split Katana is actually, whether or not the blade wielded by the heavenly restricted duo of Maki Zenin and Toji Zenin is actually that viable as a technique slash weapon slash ability within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, or if it's simply something that's worthless, even in the hands of the heavenly restricted duo. But let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. What's up, guys? Punzo here. Fun fact, I have it on me. Actually, well, I do keep it on me at all times. I think I have a more appropriate equivalent. I do happen to keep it on me at all times. Admittedly, it's not an exact replica of the Soul Split Katana, but it's the closest thing I have. And the Soul Split Katana, I don't know. I have no idea where to find that thing. I will break into the Jujutsu verse and take it for my own one day, but I need to wait till the series ends. But with that being the case, the Soul Split Katana, what is it? It is a mystical, magical curse tool within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, admittedly, curse tools on a whole are, I'd say, a relatively underexplored aspect of the Jujutsu world, mainly because a lot of characters have innate techniques, and characters who don't have innate techniques are irrelevant. Unless your name's Yuji Itadori, where you're so relevant that you're the main character, but you still have yet to gain innate technique, just yet. Though admittedly, it does seem like something a little bit special has come of Itadori. But the Soul Split Katana is one of the best curse tools in the entire series, and the reason I say that is because there are like 5 of them. Soul Split Katana, Very Spirit of Heaven, Playful Cloud, I think, what's that little stabby thing that Itadori had at the start of the series? The Chain of 1,000 Miles. Wait, there's more. And what's the last one? I guess the Prison Realm counts. The Prison Realm counts as a curse tool. And that's about it. That's all you got. So really, there's not too many competitions. So when I say it's one of the best, I mean, it's literally one of the best, as in, I don't think there are 9 other competitors to kick it out of the top 10. And there may not even be 8 other competitors to kick it out of the top 9. But even still, why is the Soul Split Katana even viable as a weapon, as a tool? Why would one want to use it? Well, here's the thing about the Soul Split Katana and why I think it actually is a relatively valid weapon and option within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. One of the biggest issues within the world of not just Jujutsu Kaisen, but a lot of series, is how bulky some characters are. But Jujutsu Kaisen is a special series where a lot of characters, especially the high tiers and especially the god tiers, are extremely bulky. Stupidly bulky. They're bulky to the point where other god tiers are struggling to damage them with attacks that would literally eviscerate a majority of the verse. Think of like your top 5 characters. Think of anything and everything that could come down to make something more and more annoying to fight within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen and just in general in combat. Think of your Sukunas. What makes Sukuna so hard to get rid of? Because he's literally infinitely bulky. You can't destroy his fingers. You can't destroy he himself. You can't destroy nothing. With Satoru Gojo, man, you can't destroy him even if you manage to hit him through the infinity. And we know how difficult that is, but say you get to Satoru himself, the man is bulky enough to eat a hit or two. Yuta Okotsu, one of his main selling points, I'd say a main selling point, a base unit especially, is how darn beefy that boy is. He may be a little itty bitty scrawny, but no, that man has some beef, some girth, some weight to him. And thusly, it leaves every single character one way or another hard to take down. Even characters like Kenjaku, characters like, ironically enough, the Heavenly Restriction Duo themselves. Any sort of character that has a lot of bulk is really hard to deal with. And another thing that allows the Soul Split Katana to be so viable is the combo factor that goes with a lot of those top tiers and their bulk. Let's say you do the impossible task. Let's say you're Ryu Ishigori, you're Yuki Tsukumo, you're Ryomen Sukuna, or Gojo Satoru. One of the biggest issues you'll run into is even if you find a way to compromise their durability, even if you pull up with the ultimate and most perfect, valid, and factual way to absolutely eviscerate your opponent, unless you execute them in one shot, they all have RCT. They can all heal. They can always come back as long as they have cursed energy, and depending on certain circumstances. There's some questionable ones up in the air, looking at you, Satoru Gojo. But heck, Satoru Gojo got an arm chopped off, it came back. Sukuna had arms literally vaporized, they came back. Yuta Kosu has hands vaporized, they came back. Kenjaku has had his arms snapped off, and he just snapped them right back on. They came back. Even after you get through the bulk of characters, which is annoying to deal with in the first place, you still have to deal with the fact that, oh, sorry, bucko, they can still regenerate. And that's rough. That's very, very rough. But that's where the Soul Split Katana comes in. You see, the beauty of the Soul Split Katana is not just the fact that it is a very sharp blade, but it's a sharp blade that doesn't actually care about your durability. It does not care at all. Fun fact, if you have a soul, then the Soul Split Katana sees a goal. And that's the best thing about the Soul Split Katana, at least in my opinion, which is what makes it so viable, especially, and really, dare I say, almost exclusively, there may be three other characters in the entire series who can directly wield the Soul Split Katana due to its special factors that we're going to cover in a little bit. But the main thing that makes the Soul Split Katana so good is that if you are able to wield it, and if you are able to hit your opponent, which are conditions that both Maki and Toji can relatively reach easily, one, because they're able to wield it, and two, because they are some of the fastest characters in the verse, you are doing damage as long as you can hit them. Of course, a weapon like this is absolutely useless against Satoru Gojo if his Infinity Zone, because it can cut through souls, the souls of inanimate objects, but like, an Infinity is more a concept rather than an object, and unfortunately Soul Split Katana has never been established to cut through concepts, only through people. So it would be worthless against Gojo, but every other character in the series, they got souls. And even if they ain't a character, if it's a statue, if it's a building, if it's something, it's got a soul. And thusly, there is a goal for the Soul Split Katana. And that's what makes it so good. A character like Yuta is insanely annoying to deal with because of how bulky he is. Even Ryu, the guy with the highest cursed energy output in all of history, up until recently, maybe the current 20-finger Sukuna has higher output than him. Maybe true CT Kashimo has higher output than him. But at least according to Kenjaku and the narrator, Ryu, for the narrator, has the highest output in the culling games, which include characters like Yuta, like Hikari, like Kashimo. And at the same time, you have Kenjaku's statement from 400 years ago, which includes characters like Yorozu, or characters like 20-finger Sukuna. Or at least Heian era 20-finger Sukuna. Once again, current Sukuna is very up in the air. But even Ryu, when dealing with Yuta, found it difficult to beat the brakes off that man, because the man was just so unbelievably bulky. And guess what? If you were to take Toji or Maki in that scenario and have them simply pull up with Spagakra on them, immediately getting cut through. Imagine any defenses that are raised by flesh, or realistically by any weapon within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen that's maybe not another Soul Split Katana, it's immediately getting cleaved through. Because that's another thing. The Soul Split Katana targets souls, and in JJK, if it's there, it likely has a soul unless it's literally a concept. The only reason I'm so iffy on Infinity is because Toji didn't use it on Gojo. And that would be an easy way to get rid of Gojo if he could work. So I'm assuming Soul Split Katana does not work on Infinity, because Infinity is a concept. But if it's an inanimate object, if it's a living human being, heck, if it's a curse, they all have souls. And thusly, since the Soul Split Katana ignores durability by strictly targeting the soul, it means that no matter what, it's getting cut. Any defense that Yuta Kotsu would raise, torn straight through. Any defense that Rika Orimoto would raise, torn right through. Any defense that Ryomen Sukuna would raise. This one's questionable, and we're going to come back to it in a little bit. I'm going to say this with an asterisk. We're going to put a little asterisk up when I say this, but maybe even Ryomen Sukuna himself would simply get slashed because he has a soul. And the durability of souls is something that's very, very questionable that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But the second thing that makes this soul damage blade so good is the fact that soul damage seems to be, this is a 90, I'll be generous. We'll say it's a 70-30 thing on whether or not the Soul Split Katana can actually be healed from. Or if soul attacks in general can actually be healed from the main healing technique in the series. Now, there are definitely other verses that have soul regenerating abilities. There are a lot of other verses that have soul regenerating abilities, and there are a lot of other verses that would sure to be able to ignore Soul Split Katana's durability negation because it's so specific. But within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen especially, the reason the Soul Split Katana is so effective is because if you are able to damage a person's soul, guess what? They ain't healing that bad boy back. And now there are contentions about this. The most specific contention comes from Mahito wondering whether or not Sukuna would actually have been able to heal Junpei. But according to Mahito, what he says, at least from my proper understanding of it, he says maybe I should have just dealt Junpei a lethal blow, because then Sukuna would have actually been able to heal that, versus me manipulating the construct or concept of his soul that made it so that Sukuna couldn't heal him even if he wanted to. But regardless, it doesn't really matter, because Sukuna will be on our side anyway. And that's what Mahito says. So it seems like soul manipulation and soul damage is nigh on unhealable. And here's the thing, right? The question you have to ask there is, does the Soul's Katana count in the same way that Idol Transfiguration does? Because what Mahito does is that he manipulates the shape, the contours of the soul, and that has a natural ramification on the body. Thusly, maybe it wouldn't work that way. Maybe if you were to use Soul Split Katana, you wouldn't actually be able to do anything. And honestly, it would still be able to be healed, because you don't grow your soul back. You just don't do that. You don't do that. If Mahito's unable to be healed and he simply just changes the shape of the soul, doesn't actually directly harm it, actually cutting at the soul, because that's what you're doing. Whenever you use Soul Split Katana, you're cutting directly at the soul. Yeah, you're not going to be able to RCT that. That piece of your soul that falls off in your arm is gone. Literally, it's stuck there. Maybe you could argue you could reattach the limb, but then I would imagine it's sort of like a severed link. There would technically be both pieces there, but it wouldn't be active because you wouldn't be able to link your soul back up. So, thusly, any damage done by Soul Split Katana deals with the two biggest issues in the verse that a lot of the top tiers really benefit from: their bulk and their ability to maintain their bulk through regeneration. Those two things immediately taken care of through the soul damage and the soul attacking nature of the Soul Split Katana, both of which are crazy. Let's just say it lightly, both of which are crazy. And the big thing is, this works on like solidly 98% of the verse. 98%. I'm saying 98 because there are two exceptions we got to talk about on whether or not it could work. Think of any character within Jujutsu Kaisen. They have a soul. They can be katana'd. Think of a character like Yuji. He has durability and he has soul understanding, but that's not going to prevent him from getting slashed. Think of Ryu, an extremely bulky character in his own right. He's getting slashed. Think of Kashimo, an extremely bulky character in his own right, getting slashed. Kakari getting slashed. And that's the best thing about Soul Split Katana too. It sort of invalidates certain matchups, regardless of whether or not a character's actually bulkier, stronger. Faster is the issue. If the character's faster than Toji or Maki, then it's irrelevant. You're never going to hit him with Soul Split Katana. Look at a character like Sukuna, look at a character like Gojo, look at a character like maybe CT Kashimo. Once again, CT Kashimo's scaling is a nightmare. But with that being the case, even if a character is bulkier than Maki and Toji, a character like Hakari is a fantastic example of this. A character like Yuta is a fantastic example of this. A character like Ryu Ishigori is a fantastic example of this. Even if they are much stronger and bulkier than the user of the Soul Split Katana, it doesn't matter, because their durability stat might as well be 0. Especially characters who don't wield weapons. You gotta realize, a character like Yuta may stand a better chance because he may notice that his katana does nothing. Because notably, what would happen on a swing of Soul Split Katana is the blade would simply not stop. One of the biggest things that makes it so good is that it would simply tear through as if you're swinging through air, because souls don't have a tangible resistance factor, at least not one that we've seen just yet. And thusly, the ability to cleave straight through such a factor would allow for characters like Ryu to just lose their hands if they tried to raise up and block. Characters like Akari to lose their arms and not be able to grow them back. Because the biggest thing is, once the soul's fallen off, RCT's not going to work. So a character like Jackpot Akari, who, if I say you give Maki and Toji, well, you have to give Hakari the benefit of the doubt that he can activate open and start spins with Toji and Maki, even though they're immune to domains. That's the only thing you have to assume, that Hakari can roll solo. But if you assume that, and you give Hakari Jackpot, especially if you give him unlimited Jackpot for one reason or another, they're one of the worst matchups for Maki and Toji. Because unfortunately, I don't see them actually putting Hikari down with anything. They aren't like Kashima. They can't blow his head off in one shot. They wouldn't be strong enough to just punch his head straight off. Even the Inverted Spear of Heaven, unless you argue it would immediately shut down Pure Love Train or Idle Death Gamble and immediately just turn off his immortality because that's a byproduct of his curse technique, then that wouldn't even work. You take away Soul Split Katana from Maki and Hikari just sits there and immortals her for however long it takes before she gets bored and leaves. Meanwhile, Soul Split Katana, it doesn't matter how immortal Hikari is because he's getting decapitated and then he's not growing his head back. All that bulk that comes from having infinite curse energy, irrelevant. All that regeneration that comes from having infinite curse energy, irrelevant because you aren't regenerating that soul. And that is very, very unfortunate. But of course, as much as I've been gassing up Soul Split Katana, the weapon is not perfect. First things first, you do need to hit your opponent. And I know that sounds so stupid, right? Like, what do you mean? That's of course you have to hit your opponent. But no, listen to me when I say it. You have to hit your opponent. Meaning that if your opponent is faster than you, relative to you, or within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, senses that you have a pretty funny weapon in your hands, because notably Soul Split Katana is a cursed tool. It's not a generic weapon. Something like this, which can't be sensed by sorcerers. Sorcerers are typically inherently wary of cursed tools because they can do literally whatever. And thusly, they would not likely want to get hit by Soul Split Katana. For Toji and Maki, this is a little bit irrelevant because they're one of the fastest characters, or two of the fastest characters of the entire series. But for characters who you want to argue relativity speed or even superior speed, the Soul Split Katana is worthless. Once again, it is legit just a katana. It has to land a hit. Where characters like Ryu have access to something like Granite Blast, which could be used as a large AoE technique. For characters like Uro, who could technically use their technique to create large area of effect attacks by yanking in large portions of the sky. For characters like Kurushi, who can cover a whole bunch of space using their cockroaches and stuff like that. And the La Bomba variations of said cockroaches. There are many other characters who could simply just flood the battlefield and play a long-range game. And unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure if Soul Split Katana can be used from a range. And by a range, I mean literally throwing it. Like javeling it at somebody. I'm not sure that's going to actually do anything. I do believe, due to the nature of how the Soul Split Katana works, where the wielder needs to be able to perceive the tangible and intangible, aka the souls of even inanimate objects, I think they do need to have their hands on it. It's like a sort of key starting a car kind of thing. And the reason I say that is look at Maki. Maki wasn't able to use it properly until she could understand the souls of inanimate objects. That's very specifically a thing that's noted in Sakurajima Colony. Thusly, I do believe if she could use it while she was holding it in her hands, if she can use it properly, she's not going to be able to use it properly by throwing it. And thusly, Soul Split Katana is limited to the range of Soul Split Katana. A very big issue in a series where a bunch of characters have long-range projectiles, whether it be Satoru, whether it be Sukuna, whether it be, realistically, a majority of the top tiers, like Ryu, like Kenjaku, like Yuta, like Rika. There are a bunch of top tiers that have full ability to just from long range. And don't get me wrong, there are certain abilities used by, well, now that I think about it, maybe not. The question is, how good do you think Soul Split Katana is at deflecting stuff? Any physical attacks, I'd say just be able to cleave straight on through. Like if you were to throw a rock at a Soul Split Katana user, they just slice right through it. No problem, right? But Granite Blast? I'm not sure if it's cutting through Granite Blast. Not all too sure about that one. Is it really cutting a purple? I don't think so. A red? A blue? Maybe? I don't know. I really don't think so. Because once again, that may fall into the concept thing, or maybe the properties of the attack would override the properties of Soul Split Katana. Unfortunately, for any energy-based projectiles, it's pretty much worthless as a defensive measure. Because once again, it's just a katana. Like, you can raise it as a shield all you want, but it's about this big. Look at the surface area this covers. Don't get me wrong, Soul Split Katana is definitely a lot wider than this one, but like, at most it would cover my entire face. The rest of my body is completely exposed to whatever damage my opponent wishes to throw at me. And thusly, as a defensive tool, pretty bad. As a ranged technique, non-existent. Literally, the range is the tip of the blade. And that's if you're feeling fancy, because you may be able to argue that the tip doesn't have the properties, it's only the front of it. But then again, we've seen Toji pierce things directly with it. And even Maki pierces when she understands the nature of Soul Split Katana. So as a ranged / defensive tool, not necessarily useful against a lot of the top tiers, because a lot of the top tiers can either A, just range out the perception wielding Heavenly Restriction duo pretty easily until they get in close range, which they will inevitably do. Like, the only issue with going against Toji and Maki specifically in long range is that They know how to deal with long range and can work around it. But if you're able to play that game, if you argue characters are relative to them in speed and they aren't faster, then the long range game kind of makes the Soul Katana a little bit whack. Another thing that makes the Soul Katana a little bit whack is that there may be some characters who are just immune to it. Like, the big question is Mahito, right? Like, if you believe that Mahito can be damaged by Soul Katana, then it's a loaded for Toji and Maki. They'll just tear through everything he has because all his constructs are flesh-based, and they tear through him. But if you want to argue that, well, technically, damage of the soul doesn't mean that they can harm the soul, that seems so stupid, though. Like, if you're literally cutting at the soul. I don't know. Mahito's a weird one, but I've heard people argue that before, that Soul Katana wouldn't actually work on Mahito because Mahito could manipulate the shape of his soul around the blade as it passes through him, since his physical form isn't really a set thing. There you go for that, but like, that's a little bit iffy. I just wanted to mention it because I know someone would be mad if I didn't. And then the big ones that it may not be able to affect due to their comprehension, and I mean full comprehension of souls, is Ryomen Sukuna and Kenjaku. Both of these characters are well established for their soul abilities. Remember, Sukuna at around I believe 2 fingers. Sukuna at around 2 fingers, who was massively weaker than a character like Jogo in terms of raw cursed energy according to Mahito, was able to bully Mahito permanently throughout the entire run of the series. Mahito couldn't, well, his entire run within the series, Mahito could not use Idle Transfiguration on Sukuna because Sukuna's soul was just that powerful. And if Mahito isn't able to change the shape of the soul when that's his whole thing, you may be able to argue that Sukuna's soul is so darn durable, magically, somehow, I don't know, that he could block off the attacks of Soul Katana. How? I don't know. I still don't know how he attacked Mahito when Mahito tried to touch his soul. I literally can't explain that to you. And a similar case applies to Kenjaku, though really not for the same reason. Kenjaku's soul isn't implied to be super duper special or super duper strong like Sukuna's is, but he does seem to be the only character other than Sukuna in the entire series that has solid fundamental understanding of how the souls, well, not Soul Katana in particular, but how souls work, how to divide them, how to store them in cursed objects, how to keep them alive yet not alive in these weird stasis-like states. Thusly, you could argue that a character like Kenjaku, even with the fact that he does have a soul, thus he should be a Soul Katana victim, he does seem to have some sort of resistance or understanding through the resistance. Some weird thing could kick in and make you say, oh, well, technically wouldn't exactly work on him. But those are the only 2 characters. Don't get me wrong, this is not an immediate matchup winner. If you argue that Maki and Toji are actually not that impressive in speed, and they get overhyped, and a lot more characters are relative to them, the Soul Katana is kind of irrelevant because of the range argument. A bunch of characters, high tiers and god tiers especially, have range that completely Was that me getting my comeuppance for trying to talk bad about Maki and Toji? I'm sorry, Maki and Toji stands. I didn't mean to. But legitimately, any top tier with a decent amount of range, if you argue they're relative in speed, Soul Katana's not going to be doing too much. If they're dealing with a character that can just flood the battlefield with a whole bunch of energy-based attacks and not physical-based attacks, very likely not going to be able to do very much. And also, the Soul Katana, once again, just is not a defensive or ranged weapon. So, worst comes to worst, it is not the best thing in existence. However, if I had to give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say the Soul Katana is a solid... I give it a solid... I want to say 8. But at the same time, I'm leaning towards a 7. So I want to say a solid 7.5. It has so many good perks to it. The ability to ignore durability and cause permanent, unhealable damage within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen are 2 fantastic things. But the lack of defensive utility, the lack of range, and the overall very strict nature of its use and its very limited threat bubble due to the nature of it literally being a sword versus any sort of ranged projectile, I think it cannot go any higher than that, as there are numerous techniques that go much higher in terms of their overall value within Jujutsu Kaisen. However, that is what I think. Please what you guys think in the comment section down below. I think Soul Katana is a fantastic weapon that has certain drawbacks that don't allow it to reach the top echelon of abilities and weaponry within Jujutsu Kaisen. What do you think? Please let me know in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave Soul Slasher in the comment section down below. Soul Slasher. I don't want to repeat that because I don't think I said it right the first time. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to hit that little notification bell so you not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave other techniques, whether it be from Jujutsu Kaisen or other series which you would like to see me cover in this How Good Was It Actually kind of format. I love to do more of these, and I have some ideas in mind, and a lot of them are Jujutsu Kaisen based, and you can probably take a guess at what some of those are, but your suggestions are always appreciated. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below, where you can support for as low as $1 a month, get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Out of the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Bull 4765. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Winter, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gem Lord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give a hefty old thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idem Okami. I'd like to give another final thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. And a final scrumdiddlyumptious gargantuan thank you to our $25 patrons, Igneal and Calvin Elder.